I'm Melina Weiskup in for Steve Lance tonight. President-elect Trump offering new details on his desire to make Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal part of the U.S. He's also criticizing the legal cases against him, which could continue beyond his inauguration. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
In a wide-ranging press conference, President-elect Trump talks about the current transition process, his upcoming foreign policy, and the current lawsuits that he's facing. Trump complains that lawfare is interfering with the transition process.
They're doing that. They're playing with the courts, as you know. They've been playing with the courts for 4 years.
In the New York business records case, an appeals court on Tuesday denied Trump's request to delay his sentencing set for this Friday. Trump also criticizes a pending report by special counsel Jack Smith on his investigations. But Judge Eileen Cannon on Tuesday temporarily blocked the release of that report, to which Trump called great news.
And it'll be a fake report, just like the investigation was a fake investigation, because it was a fake case against a political opponent. They thought they were going to use this to beat me.
On foreign policy, Trump hints at using military force and economic pressure to acquire Greenland and the Panama Canal. That, he says, is to boost U.S. national security and to protect them from Chinese threats.
The Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China.
Trump also says he might use economic force to make Canada part of the U.S., saying the U.S. has been paying too much for Canada's safety. But Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who will resign soon, responded, saying there isn't a snowball's chance in hell for that to happen. On domestic policies, Trump vows to expand drilling and to reverse President Biden's recent ban on offshore drilling in parts of Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Trump also touts a new $20 billion investment from a Dubai billionaire to build data centers across the U.S., saying it shows a bright economic outlook at home.
For the last 4 years, we've been waiting for this moment.
Notably, Trump doubles down on his vow to make major pardons for January 6 defendants, and also noting that administration will first find out who exactly was involved. Reporting from West Palm Beach, Iris Tao, NTD News.
President Biden responds to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation. He also announces another round of federal land protections. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has the update.
Following a resignation announcement by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, President Joe Biden says that the U.S. has no better ally than Canada. Biden says over the last decade, Prime Minister Trudeau has led with commitment, optimism, and strategic vision. The U.S.-Canada alliance is stronger because of him, the American and Canadian people are safer because of him, and the world is better off because of him. Trudeau said on Monday he will step down as Prime Minister once his party, the Liberal Party of Canada, has chosen a new leader. And a day after announcing a large area of offshore drilling bans, President Biden establishes hundreds of thousands of acres of land conservation in California. Biden announces that he will sign a proclamation to make the Chuckwalla and Satitla Highlands into national monuments. This will protect and preserve 848,000 acres of federal land. The White House says that President Biden has now conserved more lands and waters than any president in history, with a total of 674 million acres protected during his presidency. A statement says, since taking office, President Biden has swiftly advanced the most ambitious conservation agenda in U.S. history, setting and pursuing a bold goal to conserve at least 30% of U.S. lands and waters by 2030. The Satitla Highlands National Monument is in Northern California and includes homelands of the Pitt River Tribe and Modoc people. It also includes a dormant volcano and has the longest known lava tube system in the world. The Chuckwalla National Monument is in Southern California and includes sacred sites of 5 groups of indigenous people and 50 rare species of plants and animals. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
And some weather updates. Millions across Southern California are under a red flag warning as a powerful windstorm now underway threatens widespread damage and an extreme wildfire risk. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
A potentially destructive windstorm is taking shape across Southern California, prompting a red flag warning for 19 million people, including those in the Los Angeles metro area. The National Weather Service warns of critical fire danger in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, with the storm expected to peak early Wednesday. Wind gusts could reach 80 miles per hour with isolated gusts up to 100 miles per hour in the mountains and foothills. The National Weather Service has issued red flag warnings for parts of the region, including the Malibu coast, the Santa Monica Mountains, San Gabriel Valley, and several other high-risk areas. These warnings will remain in effect until 6 p.m. Thursday. CAL FIRE is increasing staffing and resources by deploying 45 additional fire engines and 6 hand crews from Northern California. Local units are working around the clock with extra engines, bulldozers, and water tenders stationed in Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino, and other counties. The fire risk is critical through Friday, with winds exceeding 60 miles per hour and gusts as high as 100 miles per hour in some areas. The Los Angeles Fire Department is already battling a vegetation fire in Pacific Palisades, which has spread to over 200 acres. By Tuesday afternoon, the LAFD issued mandatory evacuation orders for around 30,000 people, affecting a broad area that officials anticipate will expand and shift rapidly. Strong winds could bring down trees and power lines, causing outages. The LA Department of Water and Power advises customers to keep flashlights, charged phones, and portable chargers ready. Reporting from the city of El Monte, Christina Corona, NTD News.
And on Capitol Hill today, the Laken Riley Act became the first bill to get a vote by the new Congress. It passed with 48 Democrats joining all Republicans in support. The bill is named after a Georgia college student who was killed by an illegal immigrant who was previously arrested for theft. It would require illegal immigrants who commit certain nonviolent crimes like theft or burglary to be detained. The Senate will likely take up the bill for the first time on Friday, but several Democrats would have to vote for the measure for it to clear the 60-vote threshold required to advance the legislation. Why is South Africa becoming a prominent player in global fentanyl trafficking? How does the country's relationship with China influence its control of chemical imports used to make fentanyl? Joining me now is Jason Eli. He's a senior expert at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Joining me now is Jason Eli. He's a senior expert at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Thank you so much for your time today, Jason.
Pleasure.
Why is South Africa becoming a key location for the Mexican Sinaloa cartel to produce fentanyl, and how does the global trade affect this?
Well, South Africa is really well placed if you think about it. It's halfway between two of the largest production points for illicit drugs in the world. You've got opium, poppy, and heroin, with some methamphetamine coming out of Afghanistan. You've got cocaine and meth coming out of South and Central America. It's a country that is quite well developed in terms of its port infrastructure. It's a country that has great challenges monitoring its borders, but a country that's also well linked into the major economies around the world, and one that unfortunately suffers from some degree of corruption among its security institutions and individuals. So it's a place that is well placed geographically, but also a place that has had a long history when it comes to the production and distribution of illicit drugs in the region and beyond.
Can you talk about the implications of South Africa's political and economic ties with China with regard to controlling the chemicals used to make fentanyl?
Well, China is South Africa's #1 trade partner, first and foremost. So there's a great deal of trade that occurs between the two countries. If we add to that the fact that Chinese organized crime has been really well established since well before apartheid ended, then you've got the history of Chinese presence as well as a large volume of Chinese origin trade coming into the country. The production of illicit drugs in South Africa, synthetics in particular, and I'm talking here of methamphetamine, have been occurring since the mid-90s. So there is the presence and ability of a particular population of criminals to produce these drugs, and there is an attractive feature in terms of a great deal of demand within the country. Why would Mexican cartels be interested? Well, first and foremost, they're able to offshore their production to a location that gets beyond the security challenges that currently exist within Mexico. Locating in South Africa brings them closer to some of the largest global markets, excluding the U.S., for synthetics like methamphetamine and fentanyl. I'm talking here of Australia, New Zealand, but also Europe more directly. So it's really a situation of location and history that is contributing to this evolution that's been occurring probably over the last 8 to 10 years.
The international scale of this, what does that reveal about the nature of fentanyl trafficking and the global reach of organized crime?
Obviously, fentanyl is a challenge and has been a challenge, but in my opinion, we've got to look beyond fentanyl to some of the other synthetic opioid threats that are beginning to replace fentanyl in some of the markets around the world. I'm talking here of nitazene compounds, which are synthetic opioids that really have no medical purpose. I'm looking here at a large variety of additional fentanyl-like substances that are appearing in chemical tests that we're seeing in markets like West Africa, places in Europe, and also emerging in Southeast Asia. So we're looking at a substance that certainly has destroyed many, many lives in North America, but one that is contributing to an evolution in a wider breadth of synthetic opioid substances being seen as substitutes for fentanyl in terms of expanding the access to these substances around the world and creating a greater danger, often in many places where people don't even realize they currently exist.
How do you think that the U.S. specifically could work with other countries to stop this horrible issue from spreading any further and taking so many more lives?
Well, the U.S. has taken a really great leadership role in the global coalition on synthetics that they founded and that now counts among its membership the majority of countries around the world. I think that's a key first step. Diplomacy around the issue is extremely important, particularly when you look at the sensitive geopolitics when it comes to the two largest pharmaceutical producing nations in the world, China and India. And so I think in that regard, it's a great first step. But we need to get beyond that. Most of the countries in the world that suffer from synthetic drug market challenges, and in particular synthetic opioids, don't have the capacity to test local substances on their illegal drug markets. So they have no idea what's being used. And in many cases, they have no idea what's leading to the death of many of their citizens. So a transfer of technology in terms of the ability to test and then respond to that, I would say is a second important point. And the third thing is we've got some great programming that exists already in terms of responding to drug overdose. And this is harm reduction programming, particularly as it relates to naloxone, a substance that helps reverse opioid-related overdoses, and a strong push in expanding this programming and access to these medicines globally would be exceedingly important as well.
Thank you so much, Jason, for your time today. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.